Okay, let's just jump right in with a pretty wild idea. What if the entire story of the gospel was secretly hidden inside the very first word of the Bible? I know, it sounds out there, but that is the remarkable claim we're looking at today, that a prophetic message about Jesus is encoded right there in the opening of Genesis.
And, we're not talking about some clever translation or a symbolic interpretation someone came up with centuries later. No, the theory here is that this is a literal code, one that was placed there from the very, very beginning.
So how could something like that even work? Well, here's the key to unlocking it. The idea is that every single ancient Hebrew letter wasn't just a letter, it was originally a picture, a pictograph, and each picture had a specific meaning. So if you can understand these original pictures, you can supposedly unlock a whole new layer of meaning hidden just beneath the surface of the text.
All right, so to really dig into this claim, we've got to learn this alphabet of pictures first. You can think of it like the key to a cipher, right? So let's start with the very first letter.
Okay, so this is Aleph. Its ancient picture is the head of an ox. Pretty straightforward, right? It symbolizes strength, power, and our source even calls this God's letter, kind of like the silent, powerful leader of the whole alphabet.
Next up, we have Bet, and the picture here is a tent or a house, which makes sense. It represents a dwelling, a family. Now this is where things start to get really cool, because what happens when we start putting these pictures together?
Okay, check this out. You take Aleph, which means strength, and you add Bet, the house. What do you get? You get the Hebrew word Abba, which means father. And when you look at the pictures, it literally means the strength of the house. I mean, that's a pretty simple but powerful example of how this whole method is supposed to work.
All right, let's add another letter to our code book, Resh. The picture is the head of a man, and it stands for a person, or maybe someone in authority. So what do you think happens when we combine this letter with Bet, the house?
So you take Bet, the tent, and you add Resh, the head. That gives us the word bar. So what does that mean in pictures? The head of the tent. And in that ancient context, our source says this is interpreted as son, the heir, the next person in charge of the family. Now you're going to want to remember that word bar because it is absolutely crucial for what's coming next.
Okay, so we've got our basic alphabet of pictures down. Now let's take this method and apply it to the big one, the very first word of the entire Bible.
And that word is Bereshit. Now, this is the word we translate as in the beginning, but the claim we're exploring is that a far more specific, incredible story is hidden inside its 6 Hebrew letters.
All right, let's break it down letter by letter. So the first 2 letters, Bet and Resh, well, we just learned those. That's bar, meaning son. The very next letter is Aleph, the symbol for God. After that, we have Shin, which is a picture of teeth, and it means to destroy or devour. Then comes Yud, which is a picture of a hand representing something done by that person's own hand. And finally, we have Tav, 2 cross sticks, which our source says represents a cross or a covenant.
Okay, so when you put all those picture meanings together, in order, what do you get? You get this sentence, the Son of God is destroyed by his own hand on the cross. Just, wow, a complete prophetic sentence supposedly hidden in plain sight in the very first word of the Bible.
But hold on, it doesn't stop there, not even close. The source we're looking at argues that this hidden pattern actually continues right away in the very next 2 words of the verse. So let's look at the second word in Genesis 1:1. It's bara, and it means created. Now take a close look. Notice anything familiar about those letters? Yeah, according to the source, it's absolutely no coincidence that the first 3 letters of Bereshit are the exact same letters that spell the word bara.
So what's the implication here? Well, according to this interpretation, if those 3 letters, Bet, Resh, Aleph, mean son of God in the first word, then the second word, bara, which means created, must also carry that hidden meaning. This suggests that the creator being talked about is the Son of God.
Okay, now for the third word, Elohim, which is the Hebrew word for God. Now our source points out something really interesting about the language here. That im ending in Hebrew, it usually means something is plural, like one cherub becomes many cherubim. So the big question is, why would the very first name used for God be in a plural form? Well, the suggestion is that this hints at God's multifaceted nature, something like the Trinity.
So let's run Elohim through the same code. First, we've got Aleph, for strength. Then a new one, Lamed, which is a shepherd's crook. After that is Hey, which means behold or to reveal. Then we have Yud again, the hand, And finally, meme, which looks just like wavy lines and, you guessed it, means water.
You put all of that together and the source interprets Elohim as a full sentence. The strong shepherd reveals his hand on the waters. I mean, think about it. That's a perfect description for the God of creation in Genesis, who is literally about to bring order out of the watery chaos.
So after all this intricate decoding, what's the big takeaway? Where does this all lead? Well, the source material ties it all to a really profound claim about the very nature of prophecy itself. It all circles back to this verse in Isaiah, where God says, "I declare the end from the beginning." And the argument here is that this isn't just a pretty metaphor. The claim is that God literally encoded the end of the story of the cross, right there in the very beginning.
And that leaves us with the big question, right? Are we looking at a genuine, divinely embedded code? A prophetic signature hidden for thousands of years, or is this a really fascinating but ultimately modern way of reading meaning back into an ancient text? Now, it is really important to note that most mainstream Hebrew scholars don't actually subscribe to this pictographic interpretation, but you have to admit, the patterns it seems to reveal are, well, they're definitely something to think about.